5% and 18% slabs only. Many daily items become cheaper. Everything from food items to cars become cheaper. That's the big Diwali bonanza being announced after the 56th GST Council meeting. The Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announcing that 40% sin tax on ultra-luxury goods and tobacco products as well. But the date that's been set now is 22nd of September. We have my colleague Shweta also with us on the broadcast. Shweta, great news for all the common people watching. One is that everything from paneer to cars become cheaper. But what's also interesting here is that 40% sin tax is going to apply also on all carbonated drinks, all sugary carbonated drinks. That's a big move as well.
Sugary carbonated drinks, but I think there's also a lot of room there for confusion, and I'll come to that in just a bit. But to reiterate what you said, Krishna, I think it's great big news for all those who've been watching and waiting for this news to come out. It's come out a little premature. We were not hoping that press conference to start this late in the day, but finally there is relief. What we do know is that tax slabs have finally been rationalized. So from 5%, 12%, 18%, 28% to just two slabs, and that's the merit-based 5% and a standard 18%, and then a demerit-based 40%, the sin tax as we call it. So let's begin with 5%. All essential items, and I have a list here of items from toothpaste to chocolate to shampoo to handicrafts, will now be taxed at 5%. Anything you consume on a daily basis, all your FMCG products will now charge a 5% GST. Now, as far as 18% is concerned, so all your TVs, tractors, cement, electronics, buses, three-wheelers will be charged at 18%. So I think where it's most interesting is when Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister, pointed out that they're also trying to correct the inverted duty structure on textile. And I think this comes on the back of the fact that textile industry needs some support at the moment, given that they're facing about 50% tariffs on their exports to the US. So on fiber as well as on yarn, the taxes have been reduced on fiber from 18% to 5%, on yarn from 12% to 5%. So that's a great big news for all the consumers out there. Now, let's also quickly talk about the 40% slab rate, because that's where it gets interesting. So all your sin goods and super expensive items, including your pan masala, cigarette, gutka, all of them will be now charged at 40%. We retain the 40% charge, but caffeinated beverages and carbonated juice, that's interesting, because remember, non-caffeinated or non-carbonated juice may attract 5%, but caffeinated and carbonated juice is going to attract 40%. So this is the classic popcorn case for you, if you remember, Krishna, where a salted popcorn is far cheaper than perhaps a spicy or a cheese popcorn. So I think some more conversations will happen as far as that 40% tax is concerned. And so great big news coming. And before I throw it back to you, I think very important question on what could be the net revenue loss to the government by the way of indirect taxes 7 years since the GST was implemented. Now, estimate was that it would be to the tune of 85,000 crores to 2 lakh crore rupees annually. The government clarifying that don't call it net revenue loss, call it revenue implication, because we are hoping the buoyancy effect will kick in, and the only revenue implication we're expecting is to the tune of 45,000 crore rupees, much lower than what was anticipated.
Much lower anticipated revenue loss to the change in GST structure. We have Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, consulting editor, The Business Standard, also now joining us on the broadcast. Shubhamoy, great to have you with you on this big news break. Talk to us, an important move, a move that is meant to reset the GST regime.
Absolutely. I mean, it's gone deeper than we had expected. That's something that was quite something. Let me say what the government typically sees. Typically the high tax that comes from the excise GST, this before GST used to be the excise, and all that used to be automobiles, liquor, cigarette products. These are the three big items which bring a lot of revenue to the government. States as well as the center, and of course petroleum. Now, what the GST had done was that it had actually sprayed out lots of the other items. These items hadn't been touched, but lots of these other items had been sprayed out in a series of tax rates from 28% to 18 to 12 to 5, creating the problem that we were facing. So it has rationalized and all those things. What Finance Minister has now done and the GST Council has done is essentially recognized the smartness of just taking all of these, the ones that I said are not in this particular list, taking them out only to the 5 and 18% rate. So making it much more simpler for industry to handle. The reason why you find that the numbers, that 48,000 is actually much lower than what people expected is because there's a lot of, because as I said, a larger part of the taxes come from sectors which have been left untouched, and these were never part of we were not part of the GST, like the petroleum products like liquor, electricity, these, and tobacco, of course. These are the high yielding, and of course, automobiles. Now, in automobiles, what she's done is she has cut the duty to 18 for the small cars. But as people move on towards bigger cars, obviously the benefit of that jump will accrue to the government. So that is how the GST lay of the land has been worked out, and it's smart because that essentially ensures that those which were not really giving revenue but were just hindrances to the industry, hindrances to you and me. For instance, insurance. Insurance is a potential, but insurance wasn't a large earner. It can become a large earner now. I mean, let's see how people, and especially how the companies pass on this benefit. Then we will see insurance showing up results. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Right, fair enough. Stay with us. We also have Dr. Charan Singh, CEO of eGrow Foundation, with us on the broadcast. Dr. Charan Singh, thank you for being with us. Big headlines coming out of it. One is clearly the fact that life insurance premiums, health insurance premiums, all of them are exempt from GST. One is the reduction in rates from 18 and 12% to 5% and 28% from 28% to 18%. And then there are many that are going to go get completely untaxed, like health and life insurance premiums from 5% GST to 0 GST as well.
Yeah, I think I'm very excited. And as the Prime Minister had said earlier, that there's some bonanza coming. I thought it's a really bonanza for a person like me, a Punjabi. Paneer at nil is itself a very exciting news. The issue is that for some time, many of us had been arguing that we need to have simplified tax rate. As you know, the important canons of taxation say that the tax rates should be simplified, easy to understand, easy to implement. Once you have a very complicated tax rate, implementing it is very difficult, compliance becomes difficult. Now, one thing is very clear. The tax rate has been simplified. 5 and 18% doesn't look very heavy. People would be willing to pay. The Laffer curves immediately comes into play. You will find better compliance. People are interested in complying with the tax payment. That is going to obviously increase the revenue. Though theoretically, they have argued that there'll be 48,000 crore, a burden, I think, in the immediate period. But I think the Laffer curve comes in, kicks in, and I don't think that's going to be so large. I'm happy that the center and states have put their minds together and there's unanimity in taking this decision. As far as the insurance sector is concerned, I'm also very happy that the 33 life-saving drugs, they have moved to nil. I think health issues are very important for any country where the labor force plays a role in productivity, and therefore providing nil rate on 33 life-saving drugs. When it comes to premium, again, the banking penetration in the country has increased tremendously through Jan Dhan Yojana. Nearly 97% of Indians have a bank account now. The insurance penetration has not reached that level. We had recently been discussing about it, and there is scope, much scope, for insurance sector to also extend now. So insurance penetration will obviously improve once you find that the terms and conditions, at least the GST, has been removed from there. Now, there have been Prime Minister's schemes where for the insurance sector at very nominal rate. And there's that Ayushman scheme, again, very nominal rate. I think those will get an impetus. It's very important in a country where per capita income is not very high, social security to some extent provided in terms of food, but in terms of health, there's still a gap there. Population, 8% of it is aging. Elderly people also need some support. So I think it's very important that insurance premium has been provided a low rate. The third thing that I want to mention is if you want to kickstart the economy, I'm happy that we are projected to grow at 6.5%. Quarter one, we have recorded 7.8%, which was very surprising for many, many economists and all those people who had been forecasting. But the important thing is the country, if it has to become Viksit, within 22 years, we have only 22 years to prove our mettle now and become Viksit. Very important to unleash creativity. So I think the reduction in rates from 28% to 18% for things like buses, trucks, ambulances, air conditions, TV, these are going to unleash productive capacity in the country. And therefore, growth, which is now around 7.8% in first quarter, should easily touch 8 to 9%, something which I feel if we have to touch the Viksit Bharat threshold of 17,000 US dollars by 2047, we should grow between 8 and 9%. My own reading is that this is going to unleash that growth pattern. So therefore, I'm very happy. Taxation plays a very important role. GST has been doing very well. A threshold level has been created. Month after month, GST collections have been higher. Now the Laffer curve should be allowed to kick in. Low rates, higher compliance, higher revenue. That's what I think is going to happen.
Right, Shweta, lower rates, higher compliance, higher revenues, and also lesser complication because from 4 slabs, you're now down to exactly 2 slabs, and that should cut off a lot of confusion, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, I was at one point of time, I was of the view that we could have a multiple of 10 or a multiple.
Right, Krishna, yes, I agree 100%. We'll cut off a lot of confusion for consumers, for people, for especially for MSMEs, small shopkeepers. A lot of people we have spoken to in the last many years, 7 years of GST, and we've done numerous programs where people have been extremely confused. There have been many litigations, and perhaps the compliance will improve. In fact, there is a suggestion here which Revenue Secretary was making that the compliance in the past has improved every time there has been some sort of rationalization or reduction in rate. So that is the expectation. I think there are 2 points I would like to make here. I think very important right now is with regards to whether many opposition states are on board. Now, I know that Finance Minister is saying that every opposition state, all finance ministers have unanimously agreed. But we've heard in the past from Karnataka, especially a state that says it is going to experience some sort of a shortfall in revenue as a result of GST rationalization. So I would be interested to know how states are going to make up for it, and to what extent center is going to hold back on some of that revenue, if at all. Perhaps Shubhamoy can also come in here, and that's one thing that I would, hope to get some more clarity on. The other, of course, is what Dr. Charan was saying, is that it is likely to boost demand, consumption going forward, and perhaps will also propel economy. Now, that's something, a lot of experts are also doubtful of, because many of these items are essential items. So I'm not too sure to what extent people will start consuming, let's say, a toothpaste more or a shampoo more if, they are to be made any cheaper. I understand other non-essential items, their demand would be higher going forward, but perhaps the experts can weigh in as to what sort of a boost in demand or consumption we're looking at as a result of this rationalization.
Shubhamoy, talk to us. One is that a lower GST rate, lower tax burden, generally the idea is to encourage people to go out there and spend more, not scrimp on their spends, be it their daily essential items or their car purchases and bike purchases. So that is clearly one intent in terms of rationalizing the rates of the GST. And the other question is, there is a talk of a consensus at the 56th GST Council meeting, but do you think there will be any kind of a pullback from any of the partner states?
No, there can't be, because the GST Council decision typically, we haven't had that experience so far of state pulling back from the consensus. So once the final decision has been made, I mean, that is something that we can be very pleased about, that it has always been, once the GST numbers are decided, the Prime Finance Minister announces it, that stays, because it's the GST Council on behalf of which she reads out the statement. Basically, that part about that compensation cess and all that others, that is why that 48,000 number is important, because what essentially the government is hoping is that the tax buoyancy, as the elasticity of spending, which you rightly pointed out, Krishna, that as people spend more, then there will be more. If the packaging, I mean, if the amount of consumption rises, then that makes up for the cut in many of these products. As I said, these cuts can substantially be improved. I mean, if the people are able to spend more, and that is the primary aim for which the consumption cut has been allowed.